She sold her gold bangles, the ones her mother gave her on her wedding day, and never told anyone why. This is the story of Meera and Arjun, a couple married for 11 years, 2 kids, a small apartment on the 3rd floor of a building where the elevator never worked. They weren't rich. They weren't struggling. They were just ordinary. Arjun drove a delivery truck 6 days a week. Meera stayed home, managed the house, raised the children, and smiled at the neighbors like everything was fine. And for a long time, it was. But somewhere between the school fees, the broken ceiling fan, and the silence that started filling their evenings, something had shifted. No fight, no betrayal, just a slow, quiet distance that neither of them had a name for. It started in small ways. Arjun would come home late, drop his bag by the door, eat whatever was left on the stove, and fall asleep in the chair before Meera could even ask about his day. And Meera would sit in the kitchen, alone, washing the last of the dishes, wondering when they had stopped talking. She didn't blame him. She understood he was tired. But understanding someone's reasons doesn't always stop the loneliness from settling in. Their son, Rishi, was 10. Their daughter, Priya, was 7. Bright kids. Loud kids. Kids who needed school supplies, new shoes every few months, and a father who was too exhausted to notice how fast they were growing. One evening, Rishi came home and placed a crumpled paper on the kitchen counter. "Mama," he said quietly, "school trip next month. They need 3,000 rupees by Friday." Meera picked up the paper and read it twice. 3,000 rupees. She looked at the calendar on the wall. Arjun's next pay was still 10 days away. The electricity bill was due. Priya needed new textbooks. She folded the paper carefully and put it in her dupatta pocket. "Okay, beta," she said. "You'll go." She said it like it was nothing. That night, after the children were asleep, Meera sat on the edge of the bed and opened the small wooden box she kept on the top shelf of the cupboard. Inside were her gold bangles. 2 of them. Simple, thin, not heavy. But they were the ones her mother had slipped onto her wrists at her wedding, pressing her hands together and whispering, "These are for the hard days." She hadn't touched them in years. She held them for a long moment. Then she wrapped them in a handkerchief, placed them in her bag, and went to sleep. The next morning, she dropped the children at school, took the bus to the old market, and sold them. She got 2,200 rupees. Not enough. So she borrowed 800 from her neighbor, Mrs. Patil, telling her it was for groceries. By afternoon, she had the 3,000. Rishi's name was on the list. She never told Arjun. He didn't ask where the money came from. He didn't notice the bangles were gone. He didn't notice much those days. 2 weeks later, Arjun's sister called from the village. Their mother was unwell. Nothing serious, just age catching up. But someone needed to send money for the medicines. Arjun was already stretched thin. He sat at the kitchen table that evening, rubbing his forehead, staring at the numbers on his phone. Meera came and set a cup of tea beside him. She didn't say anything. He didn't look up. Later, she heard him on the phone with his brother. "I'll manage," Arjun was saying. "Don't worry. I'll manage." His voice cracked slightly on the second manage. Meera stood in the hallway, listening. She went back to the kitchen, opened the small tin where she kept her savings, the money she quietly set aside. 50 rupees here, 100 rupees there, from the household budget, and counted it. 4,150 rupees. It had taken her 8 months to save that. She was putting it away for a reason she'd never spoken out loud. A reason she carried alone. Maybe new curtains. Maybe a small birthday gift for herself for once. Maybe nothing. Just the comfort of having something that was hers. She counted it again. Then she walked to the doorway of the living room. "Arjun," she said softly. He looked up, eyes heavy. "Send 4,000 to your mother," she said. "I have it." He stared at her. "Where?" "From the household savings," she said simply. "It's fine." He didn't push further. He was too tired to push further. "I'll pay it back," he said. "I know," she replied, and went back to the kitchen. But here is where the misunderstanding lives. Arjun didn't know about the bangles. He didn't know about the borrowed 800. He didn't know about the 8 months of hidden savings. He saw a woman who always seemed to manage, and so he assumed she was fine. That they were fine. That the quiet in the evenings was just tiredness, not loneliness. He took her capability as contentment. And Meera? She never told him. Because she didn't want to add to his weight. Because she thought that was what love meant. Carrying what you can without making the other person feel guilty for not carrying it with you. Two people, both trying, both exhausted, and a space between them growing wider, not from anger, but from silence. One evening, Priya found her mother sitting by the window after dinner, not watching anything, just sitting, staring at her wrist where the bangles used to be. "Mama," Priya said, climbing into her lap, "where are your gold circles?" Meera smiled, the kind of smile that is made, not felt. "I put them away, baby," she said. "Why?" "Because I didn't need them anymore." Priya looked at her mother's wrist for another moment. Then she pressed a small kiss to it, right where the bangles used to sit, and ran off to find her brother. Meera sat very still, and something she had been holding for a very long time cracked open, just slightly, inside her chest. It was a Sunday. Arjun was home, which was rare. He sat at the table after breakfast, going through some receipts, and Meera was doing laundry in the other room. Rishi walked in, excited, waving a photograph. "Baba, look, from the school trip." Arjun took the photo. Rishi standing at the base of a fort, squinting into the sun, grinning wide. "You went?" Arjun said, surprised. "I didn't know the trip happened already." "Mama paid for it," Rishi said proudly. "She always figures it out." Arjun set the photo down slowly. Something in that sentence landed differently than it should have. She always figures it out. He sat with that for a moment. Then he got up and walked to the bedroom, where Meera was folding clothes. "Meera?" he said. She didn't look up. "Rishi's school trip. How did you pay for it?" A pause. Just a breath too long. "From the budget," she said. "Meera." She stopped folding. Still didn't turn around. "I checked the accounts last week," he said quietly. "There was nothing extra." Silence. He walked further into the room, looked at the small wooden box on the top shelf, walked over to it slowly, opened it. Empty. He turned to look at her. She was still facing away, her hands resting on a folded shirt. "Meera," he said, and his voice had changed now. Lower, softer, like something in him had just understood something it should have understood long ago. "Where are your bangles?" She didn't answer. "The ones from your mother." A long silence. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, she said, "They were just sitting there." Arjun stood in the middle of the room, and he did something he hadn't done in a long time. He sat down on the edge of the bed, put his face in his hands, and stayed there, not crying, not speaking, just still. Meera finally turned around. She looked at him, at the slope of his shoulders, at the way his hands covered his face, at the years of exhaustion written into his posture, and something softened in her. "Arjun," she said. He looked up. His eyes were red, not from tears, but from something older than tears. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered. She sat beside him, a space of only inches between them, but it had felt like miles for months. "Because you were already carrying so much," she said. "And you weren't?" She didn't answer. He reached over, slowly, and took her hand, her bare wrist, in both of his. "I didn't see it," he said. "I didn't see any of it." "I didn't show you," she replied. "That's not an excuse. I should have looked." They sat there for a long time, not talking about solutions, not making plans, just sitting, side by side, his hands around her wrist, in the quiet that had always been there, but felt different now. Safer, somehow. Arjun didn't have the money to buy the bangles back that week, or the next. But he started coming home a little earlier. Not every day, but more days than before. He started asking her, in the evening, how her day was, not just reporting his. She started telling him small things. The neighbor's cat, a funny thing Priya said, the price of tomatoes. Small things, but they were hers. And for the first time in a long time, someone was listening. A few weeks later, on a quiet afternoon, Arjun placed a small cloth pouch on the kitchen counter in front of Meera. She opened it. 2 thin gold bangles, not expensive, not the same as the ones from her mother, but chosen by him, for her, with what little he could set aside. He didn't say anything grand. He just stood there, waiting. She picked them up, turned them in her fingers. Then she held out her wrist. He slipped them on, slowly, carefully, the way her mother had done on her wedding day. Neither of them said a word. They didn't need to. Here is what Meera and Arjun's story teaches us. Love is not always spoken in words. Sometimes it is spoken in sold bangles, borrowed money, and silent savings jars. But love that is only carried, and never shared, becomes a weight that slowly separates two people, even when they are standing in the same room. We protect the people we love by hiding our pain, but we also lose them the same way. The bravest thing in a relationship is not sacrifice. It is saying, "I'm struggling too. Can we figure this out together?" Because when two people carry the same weight side by side, it doesn't get heavier, it gets lighter. If this story stayed with you, if you saw someone you love in Meera or in Arjun, then you're exactly who this channel is for. Every week on Between Us, we share stories about the love that lives in the quiet moments, the sacrifices no one sees, the words no one says, and the small ways people find their way back to each other. Subscribe so you never miss one. And if you know someone who carries too much in silence, share this with them. Sometimes a story says what we can't.